Hi, everyone. This is your host, Kristen Howe, and I am so excited to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Rudy Hunter. Rudy is a bodywork expert and teacher who was a professional dancer until a back injury curtailed his career and prompted him to learn all he could to help fix his own back. Through his own healing journey, he found he has a great skill working energetically on people and animals. Rudy has developed many energetic bodywork techniques for helping people all over the world get back on track and out of physical and emotional pain. His passion is in creating healing experiences that are fast, focused, and highly compassionate. And on today's call with Rudy, you will discover easy energy work that breaks through barriers. You'll find out how to harness your own energy for manifestation and why energy work is actually the easiest way to manifest. And you'll discover the simple secrets of energy work and how to use them to help you in your life right now. So, Rudy, I can't wait for this. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the call.
Hi, Kristen. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to have a chance to hang out with you and do this work.
Oh, yeah. No, I love your energy. And this, by the way, this extraordinary audience that's listening, their energy is fantastic. So this is going to be a great meeting of incredible energy. And actually, what I'd love to do is kick it all off by getting a little bit more of your story. And one of the things that we really love hearing is about some of the turning points that might have occurred in your life that have allowed you to manifest your current level of success.
Oh, sure. Well, I certainly have a circuitous route to where I am with lots of surprising detours. I started life as a magician and a dancer. The plan was to do those for the rest of my life, and I certainly did go on to do them for quite some time. And during a dance performance, I had a pretty nasty back injury happen, which literally put me flat on my back and stopped the dancing career cold. So the good news in that event, amidst the crying and complaining, was that magic sustained me. I actually went on to become a professional magician, and magic was very, very good to me. So the dancing part, which is what I actually preferred, I suddenly had a big problem to face. When you're a dancer, you don't tend to have a lot of extra money kicking around while you're busy being a struggling artist. So I didn't have really the wherewithal, the funds to go and get what I would now consider proper care. I didn't have access to that to go get regular acupuncture or chiropractic treatments. So I was living in Toronto at the time, and I scoured around to find the cheapest help that was available, and thankfully I stumbled on Feldenkrais floor work, and that's basically a whole bunch of people rolling around very slowly and gently on the floor for 3 hours. You start in pain, and you go through very gentle movements, and then by the time you're done, you feel much, much better. So fortunately, I was exposed to gentle body work and found it pretty magical, if you'll pardon the pun. So in the rehab of my back by my own hand, I actually explored all kinds of different bodywork techniques, and I think they're all great. I'm a very, very big bodywork fan, mostly because it saved me. But it's also really interesting to me, and it's kind of like body magic, I guess. So I went on to actually become certified and trained in all kinds of bodywork disciplines, and I went on to become pretty much a bodywork expert. I ended up training some massage therapists and chiropractors and nurses and lay people, and I was also at a place where I became so skilled that the folks who I had trained, when they had clients who weren't getting better, they'd actually send them to me, and I'd do sort of the finishing piece to get them back into their life. So the good news in that was I thought, well, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And that was the plan. I was going to be a very good bodywork technician, sort of like a body shop guy, I guess, for bodies. And I live in the woods, so there's lots of dogs and horses and llamas and geese and you name it, we have them here. So I would do a lot of work on animals as well. I'm a lifelong crazy animal lover. So those skills really stood me in good stead, and that was the plan. The final detour that came, or the relevant detour to where I am today, was I got exposed to some profoundly wacky, nutty, crazy people who were delightful, but nuts. I call them the tinfoil hat brigade. These were crazy healers that did things that to me looked like actual real magic. And the thing that fascinated me the most was I saw demonstrations that some of them did where there was no touching involved. So remember, I'm all about the body and touching and manipulating stuff. And there are these people standing halfway across the room or in another city sometimes, wafting around their hands or doing whatever it is they did. And people and animals got spontaneously and quickly better. So the magician in me went, I need to know what this craziness is, because it's some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. And it was really that impetus, meeting the crazy members of the Tinfoil Hat Brigade, that led me to do what I'm doing today. I had a private practice for years where I saw people, but it was limited because if someone in Australia, for example, had a problem with a horse, I couldn't just hop in the car and be there, or even counties away. It was sometimes difficult. So now I work actually all around the world, and I work exclusively long distance, and I actually get better results than I even got in person, and I got some pretty good results in person. So long story short, I consider myself to be so lucky to have one of the most just extraordinary jobs helping people and animals. I'm very lucky to do what I do.
Wow, and we're so lucky to actually be able to experience you today. So I thank you for that. So let me ask you this, because, here we are. It's Manifest Everything Now. We're talking about effortless manifestation. And in the beginning, I said we're going to find out about how you can harness your own energy for manifestation, and that energy work is actually the easiest way to manifest, which that falls under effortless manifestation. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure, absolutely. Anyone who's ever struggled to get or achieve anything, from a very simple goal to a job or a new opportunity, knows that struggle ain't where it's at, and you can quote me. The problem is that most of us are just taught that we need to work harder, longer, do more overtime, save more money, we have to push, and there's this whole mania. And that's one way to get things done, but it's a little overrated and it's full of struggle. Here's the conundrum or the dilemma, and that is we're not taught any other way to achieve what we're after. There's no option B that we're actually taught. I'm going to teach you now because it's taken me half my life to find it anyway. The option B is to go into the energy surrounding whatever it is you're after. There's a whole bunch of secrets of energy that I've discovered. Once you hear them, you'll go, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. And the first big one is there's structure to energy. And that does kind of make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I did just go, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. We live in an organized universe, and there is actually structure to energetics. So what that means is, in terms of a lived life, we're not going to go woo-woo out into the ethers, although I do like the woo-woo. Let's take an example of a job that you're looking for. If you're looking for a job, there's a structure or a frequency, or you can use whatever word is useful, but there's a way that is structured in the universe. The trick, if there is one, is to work in the supporting structure to make your connection with that job, or a good job, or a job that's useful for you or pays well or what have you, to match your energy to that. Now, that may seem really esoteric, but let me give you an example that will make perfect sense to everybody immediately. You're at a party, and someone's eyes across the room catch yours, and suddenly everything changes. There's something, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something about them, and there's something about you that's a match. And you may not even know what the match is yet. You haven't even spoken. You've just noticed each other. You can feel that from the bottom of your feet to all of the hair standing on end on the back of your neck. That's working in the energy. That's recognizing what's a match for you. With only a little bit of extrapolation, it's the same thing with a job or a house or a goal or a friend or a lover. It all works the same way. So part of what we can do with energy work is we can manipulate or change or enhance or focus the frequency that we have so we're essentially more connected or more magnetic. I guess magnetic's probably the best way to describe it. More magnetic to what it is we're after.
Okay, great. So how do we, who are listening and we're like, Rudy, those all make sense. Mm-hmm. How do I start to harness this? How do I start to, you know what I mean, as opposed to just getting it conceptually?
Right? I'm so glad you asked. Well, here's the funny part. The funny part is you could spend an awful lot of energy trying to make yourself more attractive or more magnetic to the opportunity you want or the person or the circumstance, but there's a spectacular shortcut that I'm going to teach you. And then we'll get into the guts of actually doing this. Because theory is one thing, but the doing is where all the tasting and the fun is.
Right.
So the shortcut is you get rid of what's in the way. Now that sounds way too easy. And it is. So here's the analogy I always use. If you're driving a car down a road and the windshield is muddy and grimy, you can struggle and drive dangerously, squinting around all of the schmutz and the yuck that's stuck to the window, or you can turn on the wipers and clean the window, and instantaneously you can see far, wide, and safely. So that analogy holds up when we're going for anything. When we want to start dating or find our soulmate, or when we want to find a job or look for a new opportunity, when we want to pick the right puppy, when we want to say something clearly to our teenagers without the end of the world coming to pass. It's that simple. So the shortcut is if you'll remove the schmutz or the gunk, and we're going to do this together shortly, everything gets much easier and much more quick.
That makes so much sense. So that's how it's breaking through the barriers, is it's getting the gunk away. Am I hearing you correctly?
You're exactly right. And the big thing that has happened, and it's a little slippery, is that a lot of people get distracted by what's in the gunk because it's interesting, or we think it's interesting. Oh, it's this childhood trauma. It's this, my boss was a terrible person. It's my uneven leg length. It's the fact that I'm a blonde or I weigh 3 pounds too much. We get stuck in the minutia of the why. The great news about energy work is that the why truly and really doesn't count. It doesn't matter.
I love that.
It's a big claim.
And that's huge. But that's a big thing, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. They think they need to know why. Or, Rudy, and I'm going to ask you if this matters, you know how certain people, they'll be like, I know there's gunk, but I don't know what it is. So is it possible for me to clear the gunk when I don't even, I kind of can't see it clearly? And you're saying yes, right? It doesn't matter what the gunk is.
Yes, and it's a great question, because those ideas themselves are actually part of why we're so stuck. If we believe that we have to know the reason why it's so hard for us, just as an example, to find true love or to find a good job, the mind clamps down on that idea and goes into loops of self-punishment, and it makes a whole story, and it has a little party about the why of it. The truth of the matter is that if we were to stop caring about the reason for long enough, we'd actually find we're at the goal much more quickly.
Oh my God! Say that again. Can you say that?
I don't know.
Powerful.
It comes out, and I have such a short attention span. But that's the truth of it. We can have what we're after much more easily, and certainly with way less suffering. That's the part that's important to me, because we've all suffered. Some of us a little, some of us a lot. And suffering's overrated. Suffering's extra. So you can actually get what you're after if you're just willing to use the energetic work to clear away the gunk without having to root through the gunk. It's not actually ever helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. So you're giving us permission officially right now to let go of needing to know why, needing to know what the gunk is.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. Awesome.
Well,
I love that.
It doesn't matter. And the other thing you can use as a little mind trick to remind yourself of this is even if you were to find out, who actually cares?
Right.
And I know it can sound a little blunt, especially if you have a lot of pain going on or if life is difficult. And I don't say it with any kind of malice at all. I actually come from the opposite place of malice. Do you really care that that's the reason? Wouldn't you rather just have the prize? And the truth of it is we would. We really would rather just have the prize.
Yeah, that's so true. If there's gunk on your windshield, you're still going to spray the stuff. It doesn't change the stuff you spray on the windshield to get rid of it. And right? Okay,
Exactly.
Very cool. Okay, so I would love if you could, actually take us into, as you said, theory is great, but really getting into it is amazing. And by the way, I want you, before we do any energy work, I want you to explain what we were talking about right before we started, which is that this stuff gets embedded. You're going to say this so much better than I. So explain how this gets embedded so even if you listen to this on recording, it still works. That's amazing to me.
Yeah. I actually do a process when I do energy work on recordings like this that allows the energetics to stay active. And they actually stay active for forever. And you don't have to believe that. It happens to be true. But here's how you can actually have an experience of that being true. You can come back to this on replay and do the process again on different issues even, and you'll still get major benefit like you will in the work we're about to do. So it's there for you, and one of my large goals this time around is to help lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people and animals. So this is one of the ways that makes me happy. You can return to this and use it for whatever current gunk or schmutz you have up and running.
Awesome. That's so cool.
The other one caveat I wanted to just throw out is if you're listening to this while you're driving, please don't do the energetic processes because our aim is we want you healed up, not put in any kind of distracted state. So save the processes until later when you're safe and sound.
Perfect. Thank you for saying that.
Sure. So let's do a process, and we're going to start with something. And Kristen, I think that idea you have of, you talked about not really knowing even what your gunk is. A lot of people get lost in that for that very reason. They're not sure what exactly to focus on. So let's do this. I'd like everybody who's listening just to pick one piece of gunk in one specific area of your life that's in the way of you manifesting. So what that doesn't mean is you list the 15 things you're working on currently. Because the truth of the matter is we all want to do that. But the truth of the matter is if you do one thoroughly, you'll actually make faster progress than trying to do 15 all at once. That's the truth of it.
Okay.
So you want to pick something that really feels like it's in your way. And let's split this so that we can include as many people as possible. For many of our listeners, they know what's in the way, like I can't find a job or I can't get that promotion or this goal that I'm going after just doesn't seem to be coming. Whatever it is that is specific, work on that. For those of you who are not sure, what I'm going to have you do is focus on the idea of that gunk. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but using the analogy we just had, it'll work just as well, which may surprise you. So here's how we'll do it. Before we start, I'm a big fan of using the 0 to 10 scale. We're going to just rate your level of perceived stuckness on the scale so we can check it afterwards and you can notice if there's a difference. 10 is it's the worst imaginable. It's like cement, it's so stuck. 0 is it's gone and it's not a problem anymore. And my suggestion is that you pick something that rates for yourself over a 5. And the reason for that is so that you can really notice what changes as we do this because you'll notice a change. So let's give everybody just a second to pull up one piece of specific gunk that they know, or if you're not sure, you can just pull up the gunk symbol, I guess we'll call it. And here's what's going to happen. In the next probably just a minute or so, I'm going to do some crazy-sounding mumbling. And while I do that, your job is just to keep your attention on your own perceived stuckness or discomfort about it. We'll do that, and we'll come back and see what changes. All right? So let's have everybody pull up the stuff they're working on. And here we go. Okay, you can bring your attention back and just take a minute to reorient yourself. And Kristen, can I lean on you as a guinea pig?
I was just going to go, ooh, call on me.
Yay! So here's what's important. We don't want your content. It's none of our business anyway. But what number did you start at?
I started at an 8.
Good. You picked a nice juicy one.
Yeah.
And where is it right now?
It's silly. I can think about it, but I have actually no emotional attachment to it. So I would say like a 2 or a 1.
Excellent. So I want to say a couple of things about that.
Okay.
That's you, and we're thrilled for you.
Right.
And you're going to be very similar to a vast majority of people on the call because I've done this an awfully long time. And I kind of know the numbers and the percentages. But not for everybody. Some folks on the call will only have gone down a little, and some folks will have the perception that nothing's changed. And here's the quirky sounding thing that initially won't make any sense. That's fine. Truly, when we do this work, every energetic system, every person and animal is different. So your internal perception of how fast things drop and change is going to be a little different. So I'm going to do one more follow-up round for this just to make sure for the folks that are lagging a little bit that we get them up to speed because we want everybody on the happy bus, basically. The other thing to know is that when this starts, in the energetic world, it starts a collapse. It starts a gentle implosion so that it collapses in on itself, meaning the problem. So over the coming days and weeks, and sometimes even months, the foundation of the problem actually will collapse in on itself, and the big poof noise will be heard where it becomes no longer a problem. So that's exciting news, and you don't have to believe any of that. I know people who still don't believe it. I have some clients who are harder core skeptics than I am, and they go, I don't believe anything you do, but I want to come back. It's like, yeah, okay, great. So let's do one more round. This time, the round is going to be silent. I'll be doing some different work. And if you're already at a 0, just listen to the work anyway. If you're at a 1 or a 2, just keep your focus on the same thing. If you're higher than that, keep your focus on whatever it is you are working on, because we're working on the same thing. I'll go silent for just about 30 seconds or so, and I'll let you know when we're back. Here we go. And there we go. You can bring your attention back once again. And Kristen, what did that round do for you?
I would say it definitely went down to a 1. I wouldn't say I'm at a 0, but it definitely went down to a 1.
Great. Good.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things folks can do. One of them is to come back and listen to the replay and to take whatever number you're left with and run it through once or twice more, an investment of a whole couple of minutes, and you'll be done with that problem. And then the other thing for the keeners out there, folks like myself who want to get the maximum bang for their buck, is you can actually come back to the replay and use all the energetics we'll do on this call for any issue you want. So you can really maximize your use of the fact that the energetics are embedded.
so cool. I love it because it's so fast, too. I was like, oh,
Yes.
it's over. What I found happening, and you can sort of give me your thoughts on this, especially during the first one, it's almost like I was trying to hold on to it, but I was having trouble even holding on to it.
Yes, that's very common, and that's great. One of the, either fast or slow, the image I frequently get, probably because I watch too many cartoons, is, when you're blowing up a balloon and you accidentally let it go and it goes all around the room. That's sort of it's not a technical image of how the energy works, but it amuses me. That's frequently the sensation of, oh, well, it just sort of let go and flopped around and now we don't care about it anymore.
Right. I love that. And what a great visual for us to have. I think that's fantastic. Okay, so let me ask you this. Does this work on, like, if we have serious trauma or serious negative memories that have, like, they are significant, does it work on this as well?
I'm so glad you asked. My practice is based around almost exclusively working on that stuff, because that stuff, that darkness, that trauma work, that serious stuff is frequently the cause for what's going on the surface, including things like physical pain. So one of the reasons I tell people to go try everything else first and then come work with me is because I'm a fan of, there's beautiful work in the world today, and lots of it, thank heavens. In the last 20 years in my experience, there's been an explosion of fabulous work. So if X, Y, and Z fixes your problem, great. Then it was, usually a surface problem. The stuff that persists, that will only get 50% better or 80% better, and then no matter what you do, you can't get the rest of the way, that's my place in the world. My practice is built around that very thing, because it's been my experience that it's almost always, almost without exception, undealt with emotions that are locking those problems in place. And that's the key to the rest of the way out. So when you take the energetic work that I do and focus it on the darkness and focus it on those suppressed emotional states, not only do you get those things to collapse very quickly, but there's often a big surge of all that pent-up energy that was tied up for so long with a problem. All of that energy becomes available to you again. So you notice not only an improvement on what you're working on, but there's this nice overflow improvement in all areas of your life. So a lot of allied things tend to get better as well.
Well, that makes sense, because you're clearing your gunk. I mean, so it makes sense that affects, that's how exciting is that? That's amazing. So let me ask you this. Is this something that, are there just certain people that have the gift and the talent to do this, or is it something that we all have this within us? Give me an idea about that.
It's a great question. I'll tell you, the truth of the matter is everyone who can fog a mirror has access to all of this. And I also wish in the same breath that there had been some big divine da-da-da-da that happened where there was no work involved for me to figure all of this out. But that's not the case. It comes with a great deal of slogging work. And the thing that I have a facility with is paying attention to the structure of what's happening. That's really my particular, I don't even think it's a gift. I just think I'm fairly good at it. All of the energetics and all of the energetic world is accessible to anyone. So the folks that are meditators or spend time with animals or out in nature, they already know things, if they'll pay attention, that many of us don't have access to or don't think we have access to because we're just so busy. So one of the tricks is slowing down. Another trick is being quiet, and that's very challenging for some folks. But like anything, with some practice, it's doable. And then the real thing is to pay attention. I've had the great fortune to pay attention with folks, people and animals, in very dramatic places in their life. So I've worked with people when they're dying, when they're in great pain and great trouble. So I think just having the luxury of being exposed to that, you get to see a lot of energy at work.
Right.
But there's a way that you can access this really simply. I always suggest folks go spend time with children and puppies and kittens and the places in the world where there is life itself. And for some people, that's in their garden. I don't have a particularly green thumb, but gardener friends I know have the same experience I do when I'm with, puppies. When you see life itself, when you're exposed to that, and if you pay attention, you'll actually get information directly from the source. Neat, huh?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Once we start to pay attention, once we start to slow down, once we start to use all these tips that you're giving us, how can we then use this to clear up unwanted situations in our lives or with our family members, all of that stuff? How can we do this?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Great. So much of the work that I do is designed to make that really easy for folks who either don't have the time or don't know what to do next, or don't want to go off and meditate in a cave for donkey's ears on end. But let's do something. I want to teach people something they can literally grab hold of and use right now that's the perfect answer to that question. And it's really fun. It's a technique I developed called pulling taffy.
Okay.
Now, what I'd like everyone to do is think of, we're gonna practice on something that isn't too personal, just so we know the mechanics of it. Then we'll do something a little more personal. So I'd like you to pick a place in your life that's a physical space that feels a little either uncomfortable or creepy or a place you don't like to be. So the kinds of things I'm thinking of is a cluttered closet that always bothers you, or that corner of the basement that for some reason you just don't like, or sitting at a particular place around the dining room table that just never felt comfortable. Some place that doesn't feel right is really what we're looking for. So once you've picked one of those, you're going to need both hands for this, by the way. You're going to take your hands and pretend there's a big mound of taffy between them. Taffy? Wow. Or if you want to do this with an Oriental flavor, you can imagine they're a big lump of rice noodles, but I like taffy. So I'd like you to stick your fingers of both hands into the taffy and pull and pull and pull until it stretches and then snaps. When it snaps, you just push it back together and pull and pull and pull with both hands in both directions away from each other till it snaps and squish it back together. Now, if you're doing this in public, people will make a large perimeter around you and stay away from you, but that's okay. Pull and pull and pull until it snaps and then smush it back. And while you're doing this, think about the place in the world in your life that feels uncomfortable. Stretch it, and stretch it in every direction, up and down, all the diagonals. You just pull it till it snaps, and then you smush it back together. So let's check. Check for yourself in your own direct experience. When you think about that place now, do you notice that there's something particularly different about it? So, Kristen, what'd you notice?
Yeah, it's lighter. Again, almost that same sensation I was talking about before, where I almost can't attach myself to that negative feeling.
Right. Good. And everyone, I can guarantee you, on the call will have some version of that. We also pick something that's not very personal. But I have great news. This is just as easy with something really personal and complicated. So guess what we're doing next?
Something personal and complicated.
Yay! We're going to dive into the deep end of the pool, yes. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to pick something. The best way to describe this is I want you to pick a sticky situation, because we're dealing with taffy anyway. We might as well go through with the metaphor. So sticky situations are fights with your boss, or misunderstandings between loved ones, or, God forbid, your relationship with your teenager. I don't know how we survive them. Or time at work that is just things at work are not working, or your frustration over money. Whatever it is, pick one thing. Let's do exactly what we just did. Imagine there's taffy between your hands. Stretch it out until it snaps. smush it back, and then go for every conceivable diagonal, but really do it with your hands. This technique, by the way, doesn't work if you do it mentally. Sorry, kids. No, you can't just do it mentally. You actually have to physically pull it until it snaps, and then smush it and pull it again in every direction. And I'm doing this while we're talking as well. I'm actually helping out, but you don't need my help for this. This is one of the things I'm happy to teach because you don't need me for it. You can do this crazy thing for the rest of your life on any problem that comes up, and it will be helpful. So while we're talking, we've stretched and it's snapped. We smush it back together, and then check and see. And Kristen, would you tell us what you noticed? Again, no, we don't want your content.
Yeah, again, it's a lighter feeling. I actually almost started to laugh at one point.
Awesome. The trick to this, if there is, aside from having fun, because that really is the trick, is to do it until you stop caring so much. Part of what pulling taffy does is it literally, figuratively, metaphorically, and energetically pulls the entanglements out of a problem. When that happens, your problem starts to wobble and fall, and that's a good thing.
Wow, I love that.
And it's fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
to have a good time.
well, and it's easy to sort of visualize it and see exactly what's going on. So I love that you've given us that to be able to use. I think that's just amazing. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of emotional issues and things like that. You fixed your own back with this, and this is I know going to be very interesting for people as well, because this actually works with physical ailments too. Is that right?
It sure does.
How is that possible?
You want to know a secret?
Yeah, I want to know a secret.
Here's my big secret. 99 44/100% of the time, that chronic physical pain issue, and this is where I'm quickly going to insert my disclaimer, because I don't have anything against great, competent healthcare providers. I love them. They're a godsend. What they do is a godsend. It's the truth.
True.
And 99 44/100% of the time, if something has persisted so that it's classified technically as chronic, meaning over 6 months in duration, the fire or the heat or the motivator or the perpetuator for that problem, in my experience, is almost always emotional.
Wow.
People will say, "No, it's my ankle, it's my knee, it's my nose, it's my..." Well, yes, that's where it's appearing, and there are a whole series of easy questions that you can start to ask yourself to see if your pain starts to wobble or change or move, because you can start touching into the emotions that you're trying not to feel. Now, I can say that with some authority, not only because I fixed my own back, but culturally I'm English, and we have an entire culture of not feeling feelings. Yeah. We're experts at that. We're great sublimators and stuffers of our feelings. So when you first start to even scratch the surface of having a feeling or letting up a feeling that you may have been denying for some period of time, one of the very common experiences is that pain starts to alleviate or move or shift, and it certainly gets better.
Wow.
And your doctor's still on your healing team, so great.
Right. You're not saying you don't need the doctor. I have full respect for fantastic doctors as well. Okay. Is there any chance that, because I'd love to do one more sort of, clearing experience, is it possible to do it where it's focused on physical pain, or does that not matter? Is that just the gunk, and so I'm getting focused on what it is, and that doesn't matter?
Well, the answer is yes to both questions, but if we can focus it a little more exactly, we'll get sort of more laser-focused results.
Oh, okay, cool.
So one of the pieces about physical pain, especially chronic physical pain, I'm not talking about just, bumping yourself 10 minutes ago. We're talking about something that's been around and around and it's driving you crazy. There is frequently what's called a trauma field that is active. So here's the way that goes. And it's easiest to understand with the classic story of the car accident, because I know many folks on the call will have had car accidents at some point in their life. We have a car accident a year ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, and we suffer through that event. We have some bangs and scrapes, some problems, and then many, many moons later, at this point in our life, let's say we are, it could be anything. You could be looking to get a promotion. You could be in the midst of a divorce or starting a new relationship or what have you. There's some big thing going on in your life. And then physical pain shows up seemingly out of nowhere, and nothing we do will reduce it. It's not necessarily the car accident, but in my experience, it's frequently a very old, what's called a trauma field, where part of us has locked up and needs to be let go. And as soon as that happens, there's a very big reduction in physical pain. And let me give you some other examples. Car accident is a very physical thing, or it looks like a very physical thing anyway. Some of the even more effective trauma field creators are messages we got from authority figures when we were either vulnerable or as children or in a transition state. So when someone points their finger in our face when we're a young person and says, "You're so blah," whatever it is, that goes into a special file in our mind and our energy system that says, "Oh, this is a problem." So that's one way a trauma field can get set up, and it's a very common one. Some of the forceful criticism we may have received earlier on, and I mean, it can be from a boss, it can be from a parent, it could be from even a total stranger. That stays very active in our system. That, strangely enough, can be the source of chronic pain even years later. And I know it sounds like they're two very different things, but here's a way to find that out for yourself. Here's a really good question you can ask yourself. Let's say you have some sort of joint problem, knees, shoulders, elbows, hips, what have you. You could ask yourself, if this is a chronic issue for you, what is it that this part of my body is trying to help me not feel? If you ask that in all sincerity and you listen for the answer, you will frequently be freaked out by what you hear.
Yeah.
Not only, well, if you didn't know your body can talk to you, then it'll freak you out twice. But there are messages that frequently get locked in our system at different places that our body is trying to help us hear or acknowledge or know about. So it's no secret for folks that know me that I suffered terribly from adult onset asthma for 10 years. I'm happy to report it is now completely healed.
Wow.
But in the course of that, in the midst of the suffering, I figured I better make good opportunity of the learning of it. I learned all kinds of messages that surprised me that were locked in my chest and my lungs and my heart that I had no awareness of without the shortness of breath to keep pointing me in that direction. So if you ask your body and you're willing to hear the answer, you will frequently find out they got some stuff to tell you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that question, what is this part of my body trying to help me not feel? If you get an answer to that, for example, let me give you a great example that's pretty sneaky and pervasive in a lot of conditions. If your body says, well, it's trying to help you not feel the grief you feel or the sadness that you feel, guess what would be worth practicing? The answer is feeling that grief and sadness.
Right.
Because it's a pretty simple trade or a pretty simple proposition. Don't feel the grief and sadness, have the horrifying pain. Be willing to start to feel the grief and sadness, have that pain lessen, relax, and eventually go. And sometimes quickly go. You never know.
Yeah.
if we're ever hurt by a person or hurt with people in a series of events, that physical trauma can lock up in our musculature. So it becomes a very physical experience. That's, hence the car accident or any kind of accident for that matter. One of the useful things you can do is look back at any bumps or scrapes or accidents that you've been in and ask the part of your body that hurts, who is it specifically that your body is trying to get you to forgive? That's a juicy one.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for everybody. Yeah, that is a big one. So now that I've totally stirred the pot with everybody in the call, especially about forgiveness, I'd like to do a little 30-second piece to help you let go of the charge of that guilt.
Okay.
All right? So think about someone related to an accident, or if you don't have any accidents, hallelujah, someone that you know you need to forgive but you haven't fully forgiven yet. And a few people pop to mind. Just pick one. And if you'll just put your attention gently on their face, I'm going to go silent for about 30 seconds, and we'll just do some energy work just so that that'll be easier for you. I'll let you know when we're done. Hold on. Okay, you can bring your attention back. And Kristen, how was that for you?
Amazing. I felt an opening up of love and compassion that I hadn't felt for that person.
Great. That's entirely the goal. So big hint to everybody, we all have more people we need to forgive than we're even probably willing to fess up. So you can come back to the replay. You can figure out what time this is on the replay and mark it and come back. It's a very short process, but you can bring one person to mind after another and think about it. In 10 minutes, you could forgive a whole bunch of people, which would serve them and, most importantly, serve you beyond measure.
Wow. I love that. Okay, so with everything that we've talked about, and what I love about what you're doing is it's not just addressing one area of life. It's
right,
because that's so much of, what I'm excited about is, look, we're looking to manifest a whole amazing, brilliant life. So not just in one area. So I love that about what you're doing. I'm curious, about what's possible. So people that are working with what you're doing here, can you share with us one or two stories where people experienced pretty significant turnarounds just for us to get an idea?
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, I have lots of favorites. What a problem to have to pick from a list of good things. I just very, very recently, in the last few days, I worked with a doctor in the U.S. who had some stamina issues and had some stuff going on in a relationship that was very stressful. And I just got a testimony back from him. And I love working with doctors because they're it always surprises me that doctors call me to begin with. So that's very nice. But they are, in my estimation, the hardest skeptics. And I just think it's wonderful. He had a total turnaround in his energy and stamina. The relationship stressor got completely resolved, and we're going to be working again. So he got such good improvements so quickly that we're now on to the next list of things that are up. So that's a favorite. It's nice to hear. One of my all-time favorite ones. I'm actually quite frightened of horses. I love horses, but at a distance. I also don't speak horse. Like there are people that have the whole horse world of vocabulary. They have to translate it back into English for me. I speak dog. So I work with a lot of people with horses, and I work remotely with them, actually all over the world. I was working with a woman who had a horse that had basically suddenly turned. He had thrown her and had gone from being wonderful to suddenly something was very wrong. And it was only because of scheduling challenges that I couldn't connect with her. Our schedules were crazy busy, and we were playing phone tag trying to connect. So what I did in the interim was I had her listen to some of my recorded work just as an interim step on behalf of the horse. And yes, you can do that crazy sounding thing with my work, because why not? And my thinking was that would at least give us a few days so we could get our schedules together so that I could formally do session work on him. The very next day, as things would have it, she called me and said, "Oh, good. Well, that's fixed. Thanks." I said after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I said, "And so tell me about that." And she said, "Well, he's completely turned around. Whatever it was, again, we didn't get the luxury of poking into what the problem was, which was great. Whatever it was is completely turned around. He's like a changed animal. Things are groovy." Awesome. So that's one of my favorite stories. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
nice,
cool.
Sort of like playing pinball. The ball hits here, gets the horse fixes. It's good.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, and I also love your first one that, as you said, doctors are the biggest skeptics. So the fact that you have doctors that come to you repeatedly, I mean, that says a lot. And that, and again, I will say this again, what I love about what you're doing is it's fast. That is definitely a bonus. But it also, I could feel as we were going through the work during the call, I could feel myself lightening. I mean, and I could feel a sense of like a light joy coming into me. And that's an amazing thing. And I just love the fact that it does, as I said before, hit every area of your life. It's not like this is specific to this one thing. And, if you're healing your energy systems, I can't imagine that wouldn't affect every area of your life. So that's really cool. And Rudy, you're awesome. I asked you to put together a special offer for everybody. You did. It's really, really exciting. Okay, so everybody, click on the special offer button that's on this webpage, and we will take you right there. Go ahead, Rudy. Let us know. It's an amazing thing that you've put together. So go ahead and let us know what we'll find there.
Well, thanks. The package consists of 15 downloadable MP3s. So this is really it's an energetic toolkit that requires that you just follow along with me. As we've done on this call, I've led the work, you've participated, and you've had your own experiences so far. So the MP3s work exactly the same way. Every single piece has embedded energetics. There are half of the package is short and sexy ones, and then the other half are slightly longer. So I'll just take you through what's in here. And by the way, the reason half of these are short is because clients for years, I think they were trying to be very polite with me. They said, well, we love to hear those longer things, but don't you have anything like that gets right to the point? So, okay, yeah, I do. So the first one is called Darkness Surrounds Me. That's a way of getting out of fear and gloom and sadness and depression, and it's very short. You listen along with me, and we do the energetics to actually release that state and pull you back. The next recording is called One Clear Moment, and clarity is actually a frequency. And if you already know how to get there and how to stay there when you need to, that's great. And for the times where you're not so sure how to get there, when your head is full of cobwebs and the 90,000 things you have to do, this is a very short and simple listen along to get you there. The next recording is, I think it's funny. It's called Heart Breath Dewdrops, and this was originally recorded with the intention of having some of the sweetest, most delicate and gentle, subtle, energetic frequencies in it, and it does. But what I find amusing about it is I've had clients tell me that they have used this particular recording on some of the most jagged, nasty, gnarly, heavy-duty problems, and it works great. So shows you what I know. The next one is called, this next one has a very strange title. It's called The Mother of Weather. So the Mother of Weather is actually wind. All weather is created by the force of wind. Now the energetics on this recording have to do with ventilating our body, our emotional body, and our energetic system. The deal is this is a good degunkifier.
Okay.
Even if that's hard to spell, it's a great way to move out all of the stuck places very quickly using the energetics of wind. The question I'm asked very frequently, I should tell folks, and I think it's funny, folks always want to know if I'm sitting in front of some huge frequency-generating super machine with a tinfoil hat on. Aside from the tinfoil hat, no. All of the frequencies and the energetics are actually generated by me, just so folks know. The next one is called holding on. When we're having trouble and we know we're having a hard time letting something go, all our dearly loving friends, they all say the same thing to us. They say, you should just let that go. And whenever I hear that, I always wanted to stick a fork in my head, because the deal is, if I knew how to let something go, I would have, and I would have done that last week, so you couldn't tell me I should have let it go. So holding on is a very specific roadmap of how to let something go. It's energetically embedded like everything in the set, but it's embedded so that it's easier to let go than normal. And the irony is that we spend a lot of time at the opposite pole, which is how to hold on so that you know how to let go. It's actually teaching your nervous system the difference between holding on and letting go. So it's very efficient. The next recording, boy, there's a lot here. The next recording, this one probably dates me. It's called At Sixes and Sevens, which tells you I'm no longer 20. At sixes and sevens is an old expression for being betwixt and between. So this is a recording for transitions. There are some sticky places in transitions where a lot of folks tend to get stuck. And the sticky places are at the end of one thing, between the two things, and in the beginning of the next. So if you think about relationships, you can see that pretty clearly. Or even starting a new job. There's a great tendency to over-procrastinate and hibernate in those times. So anytime you're going through a transition, listening to At Sixes and Sevens with its energetics will help you move smoothly through it. The next is called Hollow. And Hollow is an energetic address for when we feel empty or drained or dead inside. It's a way to come back into life, a way to feel more full again. And then the final short one, oh no, that's not true. The next to final short one is called Pause and Play. And pause is PAWS. This is a short recording that is it's a nervous system reset for dogs and horses and cats and llamas and ferrets and you name it, even your brother-in-law. So this will actually help any biological organism to reset their nervous system in just a few minutes. And yes, people do get this. They really do play it for their animals, and their animals really do come and settle down, and it's the wildest thing. There's another short recording called The Middle Blade. And the middle blade is it's actually an energetic remedy for what happens when we're betrayed. There's a rip and tear in the energetic field around us when we are betrayed. And listening to this recording, you can actually feel that restitch itself so that you're whole, complete, and protected again.
Wow.
And the next one, that ends the short recordings. The longer recordings are next. The next one is called Walking the Charts. And this is actually, I think, my client's favorite tool. It's an hour long. It's an old, ancient Asian technique. At the point it was used thousands of years ago, it was for finding clients. But I updated it, added energetics to make it much easier and much more useful for folks. So it's a totally non-business way of making yourself energetically more attractive in the world and more magnetic. And what that means is that when you learn this process, whatever or whoever it is that you're looking for can find you more easily. So people have used this to find lovers, clients, bowling leagues, friends, families. And when I say it's totally non-business, I really mean it. There's not a There's not a stitch of anything business related in it. But if you're a practitioner of anything, this is a very easy way to have folks find you. Quite honestly, not only do clients love this, but there are, at this point in time, a whole host of telesummit hosts who have told me, I'm not telling tales out of school, they've actually told me about it, that they use this to help their business, to help people in the world find them.
Wow.
So it's fun.
That's exciting.
Cool. And then the next one is a 20-minute long recording called MBC and Cash. That's short for Man Behind the Curtain and Cash. That's the audio portion of a webinar replay, and folks used to have to come to my site to see the webinar. So now you can actually own your own energetics of that, so you can load it on your iPod or media player, as I would hope you would do with all of these. So that you can just flip through and see, do I want 2 minutes of Rudy or 20 minutes of Rudy? And this is a money-busting issue webinar that takes you through a process so you can actually see some of the mechanics of how the energetics of money work. And then there are 4 bonuses in this package, and I like to call the bonuses for people who are gluttons for punishment. They're replays of different interviews I've done that include teaching, some gum flapping by yours truly, and lots of embedded energetics. And they actually total an extra 6.5 hours of my work. So if you're up for it, well, you can always access that as you like. My hope with this package, and the reason I put it together in the way that I did, is there's short stuff, medium stuff, and long stuff. All of it contains embedded energetics. And the real goal in this, if there is one, is that these are tools to help you when something comes up. The real actual goal is to go live a happy life. That's our real goal. But as we have noticed, occasionally something bothersome comes up. And it's my hope, because if you opt to get the package, you'll actually own it for life. So you can use it endlessly. My hope is that when something comes up, you'll be able to just access the recording that best suits your need for whatever's going on for you. And that's it in a big nutshell.
I was going to say, and now everybody knows why I said this was an amazing package that you've put together. I mean, there's just so much in it that you can see how, okay, no matter what I'm going through, I have access to something that can help me, and that's fantastic. Right. And I love that you've given us that resource. Let me ask you this, Rudy. Mm-hmm. When people start to use your package here, what are some of the immediate benefits that, or things that they could expect to start experiencing pretty much right away?
Sure. Well, just as you've had a taste of on this call, within 30 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to start feeling different with whatever tool you're working with in this. And that's whether you're in a deep, dark, stuck state. Well, that's hard to say. Deep, dark, stuck. You know what I'm saying. Or whether it's just a bothersome thing that happened at work. Whether it's surface or deeper, folks report back to me that the shifts are quick and they are sustained. That's a very important piece to me personally, because it's one thing to go and fix something 100 times, but I would prefer that when you're done, you're done. And that's the intention in this work. My clients give me that feedback that when they're done, they're done. And I do also have, I have 2 different approaches to this, and I should tell folks about it. Some folks go whole hog and listen to all kinds of my stuff a whole bunch of times, and that's great.
Okay.
And I have some folks who pick and choose and use this one here and take a few days off and do that occasionally, and both are great. I think it's more who you are as a person. I have a piece of advice with working with my work. You can't overdo it, but my advice is to slightly underdo it so that it's always a pleasure, so that it's easy and it never feels like work, just because you'll enjoy it more.
Wow. Enjoying it too. That's the best part. Okay, so everyone.
If you haven't yet, just click on the special offer button on this page to see for yourself what an amazing package this is. You'll be glad you did.
And everybody listening, you're all fantastic. This is such a joy for me to get to do this. So thank you for being part of that. And Rudy, you've been amazing. I love talking with you. I'm so excited to have been able to share you with everyone. Do you have any final words of Rudy's brilliance that you want to send us off into the day with?
Well, I do, and it's really simple. Just be kinder to yourself. That's it. If you'll do that, everyone around you can relax. You can relax. You'll enjoy your life more. It can, in fact, actually be that simple. And Kristen, it's been just a delight hanging out with you.
Oh, yeah. No, you're fantastic. I can't wait till we can do this again. So thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thank you. Until the next time, keep manifesting. Bye-bye, everyone.